You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 51. Before we get started with the upcoming episode, I wanted to let you know that when I recorded this episode, I had decided that I was going to stop doing the podcast at a year's time. And since recording this episode, I have changed my mind. So I'm going to continue with the podcast. So please ignore the comments that I make about no longer podcasting anymore. And in episode number 53, I'll talk about the new direction that I would like to go with the podcast. Until then, enjoy this episode.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Bias.
The number one thing that you can do for yourself right now is to set a goal. And it's no matter where you're at in your life. If you're younger and you're looking to finish school, maybe find a life partner, have children, find that great job. Or maybe you finished all that and now you're like, well, what's the point? I've already had kids and what's the point? I don't really have any more goals and life is so far, it's going okay. And when we say the word goal, I think we often get confused that it has to be this kind of big goal or something that is mind-blowing or something like that. And a goal can be anything. I mean, I remember when I was a bit lost in my life, the goal maybe was just to get outside of the house and take a walk for 5 minutes a day, for 3 months. 3 months, every day, go outside, take a walk for 5 minutes. That's a goal. And that was a really ambitious goal from where I was at. I was kind of really feeling really lost in my life. And so goals can be really anything. It could be having a better relationship with your best friend or losing the 10 kilos that you've always wanted to lose. Or it could just be getting a better job. And I'm going to give you some really good reasons on why to set a goal. A lot of times, people don't want to think about the future, and for whatever reason. I mean, there's a lot of things, with meditation, stay in the moment, be more mindful and present in the moment. Well, although that's true and that's a really great goal, the problem is that your brain doesn't stop thinking about the future, even when you're trying to be in the present moment. And the other aspect of setting a goal into the future is that it actually does keep you in the present moment. Now, when I first heard this, I was kind of confused. I was like, how does thinking about the future actually keep you in the present moment? Well, when you have something to focus on, all of a sudden you're going to become conscious of all of your thoughts that you weren't aware of, that were kind of blind spots, and you didn't know. As soon as you give your brain something like that to focus on that seems out of reach, like for me, it was going on a 5-minute walk a day for 3 months, out of reach. A lot of stuff is going to come up and you're going to hear a lot of mind drama. There's going to be voices that come. There's going to be maybe your mom's voice that comes up in your head that you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And that actually brings you into that present moment because regardless, those thoughts are there whether you're aware of them or not. And when you're aware of them, you can control them. And so, thinking about the future, setting a goal for the future will bring you into the present moment, almost like a crash and burn. Try setting a really big goal and it'll bring you way back to the present moment because a lot of stuff is going to come up. The bigger the goal, the more stuff is going to come up. And the second reason to have a goal is to give your brain something to focus on. Your brain is not an organized system, But because we have our prefrontal cortex, which is capable of organization, you actually have to then go tell it to actually organize. Even though there is the capability inside our brains to organize, then something kind of meta, I think, that you have to go then tell your brain to be organized and then kind of get it organized. Otherwise, if you just let your brain go, it's going to do whatever. It's going to kind of do whatever in the moment, in the impulse, and directing it means you also have control of it. And that means when you can direct something, you can actually achieve your goal, whatever the goal is. And that's the beauty of it. And a lot of times we don't achieve goals because we don't keep directing our brain back to that goal and keep it focused on that. We let impulses and things take over, and then sometimes we forget the goal. And then we let go of the goal and things like that, and we stop working at the goal. And that actually brings me to the third reason why to set a goal. It is the best way to create integrity with yourself. And I had been told this, and I realized that a lot of my goals I actually had quit, even though I'd gotten kind of really far, but kind of at the last stretch, I stopped. And for me, a goal is really exciting in the beginning because it's like, I don't know that much, or I can kind of revel in it, everything kind of being new and exciting. And not everybody thinks that about beginnings because they think beginnings can be messy. But for me, I love the kind of beginning part, and then kind of the middle of the road gets kind of boring, and I lose that traction, that motivation. And a lot of times it's the opposite for people. Like they don't have as much traction, but once they get going, then they get motivation to finish it. And I'm one of those people that tends to quit a goal. And I wanted to quit podcasting earlier than what I had said. So my goal was 1 year, no matter what. I was going to do 1 year. I wrote it down and I said, when it gets closer to the 1 year, I'm going to evaluate it. And I'll find out if I want to. And at the moment I started questioning whether or not I wanted to continue on my podcast journey, I was like, well, why don't I just stop now? I still had about, I would say, 10 episodes, maybe a little bit more than that to do. And I could have just been like, oh, I'll just stop. I mean, why bother doing this content when I know I'm deciding I'm going to focus my content more on writing rather than on audio. And so here's what happened. My brain did all that stuff. I had really good reasons to stop. Like, why continue in this when I should be spending time on writing instead? And I mean, there were so many reasons. And then I remembered that goals are about creating integrity yourself. It's creating trust with yourself that when you set a goal, you know it's going to be completed. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you trust yourself, the more and more you have integrity with yourself. And I think I had lost that integrity because with every kind of, especially like personal goals, the ones that I truly desired, a lot of times I had a goal of getting a job, and that was really just to obtain my worth so I can prove my worth to the outside world. But some of the goals that were really about what I wanted to accomplish in my life, coming from a place of true desire, I would stop. And it really does feel good in that moment to stop. What I realized is that I never pushed through the difficult part, that middle part that I didn't quite like, that feels uncomfortable to me because the beginnings feel great and the middle sucks for me. And I was like, okay, I still need to create content for a number of episodes. Either though I had some content planned already kind of in my head, I hadn't planned out the rest of the episodes, and I was kind of having less time to podcast because other commitments were taking over, and I was choosing to work on some of my other commitments more and spending more time there. And I needed to push through, and I was like, okay, this is the part that I don't like. This is the uncomfortable part, and I need to create the content. And it was hard. I found it very difficult to push through writing down what the content was, making the episode plan, and then actually putting that in my agenda and following through on my agenda when I was going to record the episodes. And I'll tell you what, this is probably about the first time in my life that I've actually completed a personal goal. I am one episode away from doing that. And I'm sitting here and I feel amazing because of it. And I'll tell you that feeling, I don't know if I would have had those kind of thoughts if I had stopped 10 episodes ago. I would have been kind of like, oh, I didn't follow through on it. Oh, no. And then, I'm about to actually set my next goal. And I don't know if I would have that integrity and trust that writing it down and planning it out, that I would make it to the finish line. But now that I'm at, one episode away from the finish line, I know that this new goal that's coming up in my life, I have trust in myself that I'm going to complete it. And it feels totally weird. And at the same time, totally awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And as the title suggests, please set a goal, no matter what it is, even if it's going for a walk every day for 5 minutes for 3 months. Please set that goal, and I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.